All right, good evening, everyone, and do what the wilt shall be the whole of the low. Welcome back to Thelema After Tears. With me, Marco Visconti. How's everybody doing? How is the beginning of the new vulgar year treating you, or calendar year, we should say, right? Welcome everybody who's already in the chat. If you want to write to me in the chat, you can do it. Well, you can do it in multiple places. YouTube is the main one. But then it's also on Twitch and now also on everywhere really. Like I'll be able to see if you write to me on Instagram and on Twitter too, and on Facebook too. 93, and again, do the will shall be the whole of the low to everybody who is saying hello on various on all these various platforms. Amazing. As you can see, I have spruced it up a little bit, the ambiance, and I also learned how to do things like this so I can get closer to you when I have to say something horrible, which is fantastic. I think, I'm very happy with little things here in my uh, very very small studio that I've been building up for years now. But as you know, I don't really do this like as often as I should. Greetings from Georgia, USA. Somebody is saying the Curious Gnostic on Instagram. Welcome, the Curious Gnostic. And again, welcome everybody else. Chaos in Equilibrium, Lawrence. Welcome, Lawrence. Thank you for being a supporter in the on YouTube. Thank you very much. As usual, so what we're gonna, as usual, right? As usual, like I always like to introduce what we're gonna discuss tonight, and then I'll do for a little detour that needs to be done, as you know, and then gonna get into the meat of the night. So tonight, as you might have noticed, if you have been looking at this live stream on YouTube, the very clickbaity title is "Magical Orders. Do we still need them?" And I think there's a little bit more to discuss than that, and I hope we'll be able to do it in the time we have together. But in general, that's a question that I got a million times, a question I answered a million times, and I still get it. So I guess that periodically it's just good to reanalyze the concept at hand and see. Well, first of all, I can tell you if my perception has I've changed on it, and then we can go from there. As usual, if you have any questions for me, put them in the chat. I'll be able to star the questions in the chats that you drop on YouTube. I won't be able to do that on Instagram, so apologies if I don't get to you on Instagram. I'll try to get back to it when I can. I already see somebody who is actually leaving questions. Please do. Like I said, like the theme of the night is this on the magical orders, if we still need them. But in general, like if you have any questions on magic and Thelema, I'll see if I can answer that, and if I know the answer, I'll try to get that to give an answer to that. So before moving to that, as you can see in the ticker below, that's a bunch of way you can do to support me if you are interested in what I do. And so of course you can like and subscribe and share. That's free and always very welcome. And then you can support me through YouTube memberships, super chat, super stickers, and thanks button. That's only on YouTube. Or you can subscribe to Magic with Tears, which is my platform, and there's so much content in there that I don't even know what to do with it. Possibly one day writing a second book, which maybe I've been doing, but it's going to take some time before it will come into fruition properly. In general, yeah, I mean, like you know the drill. Like I guess if you're here, you've been following me for a while online, and you know what I do. If you're completely new, well, definitely go on marcovisconti.org to get an idea of what I do and to see what I offer in terms of classes. As I mentioned in my last live stream a few weeks ago, I will keep doing this because it's a good way to even to keep my mind occupied and revaluing and reanalyzing concepts again and again. But in general, this is not where I present my content, if you want to use this term that I really don't like. All my actual content is on magic.marcovisconti.org. All my classes are there, all my courses are there. That's where I actually do teaching online. Okay. All right, that's it. So a couple of more things. What else is coming up next in 2024? A couple of things that I need to remember you all, because we all have very short memories. So the first thing that's coming up next is my course with the legendary Peter Levenda, starting on the 2nd of February. So really like 2-3 weeks from now. The course is almost 80% sold out. Sorry, already. And that means that when it's gone, it's gone. This is the first time I do a course with someone else. I do not know if Peter will ever or want to do it again. We haven't decided yet if this will be available for those who do not participate in the lab. I don't think it will. In fact, this will be, like all my courses are like, you can join at any time and you can always come back and do it on your own, at your own pace. I don't think this will be the case. Like, if you want to be part of this experience, this is the first time since the 1980s that Peter Levenda will do any sort of public teaching on these subjects. And again, if you this is your chance, right? It's now or never, as they say. um, I will be with Peter on a couple of podcasts and possibly even a Twitter space. I refuse to call it X, even it feels like, X as in 4chan X. It really feels like that. I refuse it to call it like that. But in general, we will be on a Twitter space in the next weeks, possibly the week before the beginning of the course, to really explaining what we're going to do, pretty much. But like I said, this is going to be a one-off, right? If you're signed up to this, you experience it. If not, you won't. So you might want to consider that. Again, on my website, you'll find all the information for that, or you can ask me directly. I'll be able to. I'll be happy to give you a little bit more details if you have any questions in particular. The other one, as you'll know if you've been following me for a while, that I'm going to be leading an in-person retreat in the south of France in September 2024. The first week is already sold out. The second week is we're still trying to find the dream team, as we found for the first week. There are only 8 places each week, and the first one was very quick to come together. The second one, we're taking our time, because, as I said, like, this is our aim is to create the best environment for everybody involved. We're gonna have to spend like a week together, and so you want to make sure that it's the best alchemical mixture of people that we can come up with. I will be speaking with Tonalise, which is my co-host. Me and her will be doing some writing and some live streams in the coming months. There's still plenty of time to September, but years go fast. And so again, if by any means you have any questions, please send me a note, and maybe we'll answer them in upcoming live stream. There is already an introductory live stream that we recorded in November. Was it December? Time is weird. And it's on my YouTube channel if you are curious. But again, there's so much more to cover and so much more to discuss. So a lot more is indeed coming. If you're in London in February, I will be doing an in-person introduction to the pentagram rituals with historical and practical insights at the College of Psychic Studies. Again, this could be a good way of bringing magic, outside the confines of this virtual space, which has been great for all of us, but it's limiting in many ways. True magic, actual, changing initiatory experience happens in the world, in the real world. This is not to say that, of course, certain life changing experience cannot happen virtually, either virtually like this or virtually as in astrally. But at the same time, it's good that we're we're finally able to go back into physical spaces. And spending an afternoon at the College of Psychic Studies here in London, it's just incredible. Now, if you can join, if you're not in London, I mean, of course, most of you who follow me online, and most of you actually are from the United States, with a bunch of people in Asia and in Oceania, and very few people outside of Europe, like outside of the UK. But in general, so we're not very close geographically, so I can understand if you cannot make it to London. So I will also be doing something completely new, something I've never done before, and that is a class on what I call the alchemical mandalas, right? Again, at the College of Psychic Studies. Both of them are available to purchase on the college's website, which is, I think Jessica is very nicely putting everything online, as you can see here. But in general, if you go on the College of Psychic Studies and you just search for my name, you will see what classes I'm offering through their platform. The online ones, I don't think ever sold out. The in-person one will sell out, and it's almost, I mean, it's 50% sold already. So again, if you're in London, if you're interested in that, just consider that we're moving towards getting closer to it. Okay, so what I'm doing, there you go. Now, finally, that I've done, I've introduced you to everything I do and everything I'm going to do in the next few weeks. Let's move on to the meat of the night, right? So why are we still obsessed with magical orders? Like, what is this thing where we, and by we I mean literally everybody who is interested in the Western esoteric tradition at large, seems to be unable to let go of the idea of joining a group where the the people facilitating the group are more advanced than them spiritually, initiatorily, and so through the use to the use of their experience and expertise, possibly they can be guided towards initiation. Okay, so I think that this is a very it's an ongoing narrative that it's hard to to move past. From one side is because we're used to see that in the way we learn other things, right? I mean, we know that if we have to learn everything, we're going to school, and then we're going to, I mean, in Italy we have elementary school, intermediate school, high school, and then a university. Here is different. I never understood how the school system works outside of Italy, but you get the gist, right? We have this idea that you go to school, you learn something, and that's it. And of course, if you're interested in the Western esoteric tradition, well, lo and behold, we have the enduring experience of the legacy of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which pretty much single-handedly created a blueprint for something to aspire. And then I like to say it all the time, but it's true. For a lot of us who were born, a lot of us, Gen X and millennials. I'm definitely Gen X, but also millennials. I don't think Gen Z is a case anymore. But in general, for everybody who's between 30 and 40 and 50, that period of time, which, by the way, in my experience, are the people that are more interested in the Western esoteric tradition. Younger people are interested in other things, definitely not in Thelema, and definitely not in anything Golden Dawn like, or anything similar to that. Well, we grew up with Harry Potter, right? Like it or not, and I'm not going to go into any discussion about the ongoing problems with J.K. Rowling's. If there are problems, if you don't think there are problems, I'm not going to discuss that. This is behind that. But the problem is the reality is that we all grew up with Harry Potter, and the idea of Hogwarts. It's another thing that fed into this ongoing narrative that you go to school and you just learn magic going to school. And of course, What is the magical school? Well, magical orders. Okay. Now, is there is there any value, actual value in joining magical orders, or are they simply providing another kind of experience, right? One of the reasons why I'm even discussing this tonight is because I was looking at Twitter again. I refuse to call it X, and one of my guilty pleasures is to keep following, EL131, another famous Thelemite who produced contents online. And what I kind of I mean, I don't agree with everything he says. We even had a lot of vocal disagreements. I think we agree on the fundamentals, but we really disagree on many other things. However, I like the way he's been producing his content lately, and that is that he became very confrontational, which is something that I've always done, and people always gave me shit for that. But in general, like everything he posts is pretty much like shit posts constantly right now, in the sense that he always says something very confrontational. And through one of these recent threads, someone replied, and of course I'd learned the name, it's not important who this person is. Somebody replied like this: I honestly wish there was just a Thelemic temple that did daily masses where you could go, sit in temple, go to mass, be with people, do service at the community level, go into the culture, etc. Instead, this is what we have now. And what we have now means is that, especially when you look at Thelema, you have an incredibly fragmented and atomized pseudo culture that doesn't really know what to do with itself. And there's then all the various aim fights between AA lineages and people inside the OTO, people outside the OTO. Of course, I'm a classic example of somebody who was very much into the OTO, very much a supporter of the OTO for a decade. And then I got out of it, and now I'm very much against it. And I think I think the OTO, as I said many times, and we'll discuss it later on as well, it's a cosplay group. It's just a recreation group. There's no inherent value in that. But what was interesting to me is that this person is someone who found Thelema a couple of years ago, has been incredibly vocal about how much they love Thelema, and then turns out that everything they care is this, like having a community hub where they can actually engage with a community, with a with a group of people that they think they share the same value as them. And again, this is possibly this is not the case, right? So just to let you know, this is where all this entire video started with, right? And now I'm going to take a little bit to answering a couple of your questions that I already received on Instagram. By the way, thank you, Desmond. And then I'm going to come back to this, okay? So the first question is that I received is so do I really need formal initiation to practice, right? Is this something where you really have to get a formal initiation into something to be able to practice that something? Again, it depends what you want to practice. If you want to practice voodoo or Santeria, or if you want to practice pretty much everything that comes from the African diaspora, you have to receive formal initiation. Or believe it or not, if you want to practice actual Wicca, that is Gardnerian or Alexandrian Wicca, I'm not sure about fairy Wicca. I'm more familiar with the first two strands of Wicca, not because I'm a Wiccan myself, but I have a lot of Wiccan friends, and I'm friends with a lot of second or third generation Wiccans, people that actually worked there at the very beginning, or at least had their instructors were people that were there at the very beginning. In order to practice all of these things, so African diaspora traditions and Wicca, and there's something else as well. I can think. I'm not. It's not thinking of it right now, but surely there are other other examples. You have to be formally initiated. You have to receive a magical link to what we call the aggregor. Now, the aggregor is aggregor or aggregora. It's a Greek term that means, let's say, to keep it simple, for those of you who don't know what aggregor means, consider it means a group mind, okay, that becomes something that is possibly it's created by a circle of initiates coming together, circle of magicians coming together. They create something, and then this something becomes something bigger than the sum of each individual, and it starts to generate a mind of its own. And this mind of its own is divine or semi-divine in nature, and so has a direct link with the divine, and by virtue of that divine link can then reverberate that divine link on the circle of magicians or initiates or witches that created it. Okay, this is the general idea behind formal initiation. At least this is the let's say this is my understanding of it. I guess that if you ask a Wiccan, or if you ask an initiate of voodoo or Santeria of Lukumi, they will speak not of egregores, they will speak of gods and goddesses. And in my understanding and the way I see the word, most gods and goddesses are in fact egregores. Okay, like humanity created them and they became bigger than us, and now we can engage with them. Okay, again, this is my perspective. I'm not going to go into this, minutiae, but just to give you an idea what an egregore is. So, long story short, if you want to be practice any of those things, you need formal initiation. But if you want to practice Thelema, if you want to practice the Golden Dawn, you don't need, or if you want to practice the, alchemy, the Western tradition at large, you don't need formal initiation. You don't need that link to the egregore, because and then I'm going to speak from authority here because I can tell you about Thelema, especially in Thelema, it's about you yourself becoming the link to the divine. It's all the idea of finding your true will, discovering your true will, establishing knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. That means creating your own connection. Okay, you don't need formal initiation to practice. You don't need to be initiated in the OTO or DAA or anything to be a Thelemite. Okay, this is similar to in the Golden Dawn tradition as well. I would argue that in order to call yourself an adept of the Golden Dawn, or even more than that, you have to be initiated formally by the Golden Dawn. But there, over the years, several authors, starting from Rigard, but many others, created a system of self-initiation into the Golden Dawn. This is different, however, than there's a nuance there. Like, you don't need to be formally initiated in the Golden Dawn tradition to practice the Golden Dawn. But then I've also seen famously there's a dude that appears from nothing in the last few years, and out of sudden in 2 years, his life went to shit because he discovered his true will and the Holy Guardian Angel, and now he teaches magic. It's an ongoing story. It's always this, right? I think the pandemic really fucked up people's minds badly, but in general now everybody now is a teacher, everybody has experience. But this person insists that since they have pretty much got self-initiation through the books of John Michael Greer, they're an adept of the Golden Dawn. That's not true. Like, you have to go into the Golden Dawn and receive formal initiation if you want to claim a Golden Dawn degree. At the same and degree and grade, like Adeptus Minor, for instance, or Adept. The same way, if you want to claim a degree in OTO, if you want to claim a grade in the AA, you have to receive formal initiation, because what you need is it's consider like you're joining a club, right? Um, it should be more than that, and then we're going to discuss it in the next question. But that's the point. Like, if you want that specific qualification, you have to be formally initiated, but you don't need it to just practice. Okay. Now, this leads us to the second question. It's like, do the degrees and grades actually mean anything? In the sense, like, is a neophyte less spiritually advanced than a Magister Templi or an adept, or I should say an adept, a Magister Templi? Ideally, yes. Okay. Ideally, those grades and degrees really mean, to a spiritual evolution, right? In fact, I think that it's really hard. I mean, I never met anyone who has such like a has like a lot of grades and degrees that have anything to say or anything to teach. Because the reality of the fact is that when these orders become a social group, these degrees and these grades end up meaning your social status in the group. This was incredibly evident in my experience in the OTO. If you read the intimation towards the constitution of the order, Liber 194 of the OTO, it kind of explains how the OTO should function, right? It's not true. It never functioned like that. But when you read it, it's very interesting, right? Because it promises a lot of things. It almost promises like an incredibly meritocratic society where everybody looks after each other, and it's everybody at the top is this sort of philosopher king. Not that, obviously. It's a utopia. It was never manifested in Cloris time. It's definitely not manifested now. But the point I'm making is that there's one point in Liber 194 where it says that after a certain degree, you have to be invited into those degrees. And this happens in a lot of these groups, right? Maybe the first ones are free for all, more or less, but then there's an element of invitation. Like only if you've been invited. And the idea of being invited is that only if you proved yourself that you've been studying, you've been growing spiritually, you've been understanding the practice that you've been practicing, then you'll be invited. Well, lo and behold, what happens all the time? I never saw this not be the case. What happens is that the friends of the boss go on and the other lags behind. Always. I forgot to put a slide, but if you were on Instagram a few days ago, you see that I put like it was an interesting infographic that I got it from a friend of mine, David. Thank you, David. And David was reposting something from an MBA business school infographic, and the idea is that how companies lose top talent, and it was like this circular diagram that proves that these things keep on happening, and that is that basically companies lose top talent because top talent is given task, but they're not given enough resources, and then the leadership complains about it, and then top talent leaves. Lo and behold, it's the same in any group I belong to. The only notable exception maybe is Freemasonry, but I will discuss Freemasonry at the end of this. And possibly the only notable exception there is because Freemasonry doesn't promise you much. Okay, Freemasonry is very much about service and about fitting into society, which is also why Freemasonry it's an all Dionic system. But it doesn't really promise you a lot of advancement like many of these other orders do, because they use these grades and degrees as carrot on a stick, so that you can actually you can pretty much keep supporting for free and for nothing the system at all, and possibly the leaders. So long story short, does the grades and degrees mean anything? Not really, not anymore. Possibly they were meant to mean something on paper, but I haven't seen any actual proof that they do. Okay, so now finally, so what is the connection? What about the connection with the aggregor, right? Okay, so this is a bit too close. Okay, so remember when I say that these groups come together because a group of magicians or witches or initiates come together, creates this semi-divine, possibly then divine group mind that becomes big and becomes like a tether to actual divinity. Okay, what about it? Well, on YouTube, I have a video from a few months ago where I spoke about Baphomet. Okay, and Baphomet is one of maybe it is the most important egregore in the OTO, or one of them. And in that video, I explained how if you join the OTO nowadays, it's not there anymore, right? Because the people that run it, Bill Breeze famously changed the initiatory oaths so that people swear oaths not to the Grandmaster Baphomet, which is the egregore, but to him, to people, right? And if you're in the UK, you swear it to Hyperion, which is the grandmaster of the UK. If you are in Australia, is where to show you. So basically, what happened there is that these people, I don't know if out of ignorance or actually out of actual malice, they change. I don't know that. I generally don't. I tend to think it's out of ignorance and stupidity, but I'm not gonna rule out malice completely. They change it so that, or possibly, possibly these people don't believe in that. You got to understand that, especially when we look at Thelema, and this is incredibly well exemplified again by EL131 on Twitter. A lot of these people don't believe in magic. Don't believe they consider everything. They consider occultism just something bad, right? Something that like is superstition, right? Crowley famously said a lot of things about superstition being bad and occultism being bad, but I think Crowley really meant something again very nuanced, that and nuanced just being completely washed away by anybody who tried to discuss the lemma nowadays. But and the point is that a lot of people that are in the OTO really don't care truly about magic, especially people at the leadership level. So long story short, what about the connection of the aggregor? The truth is that that connection is long gone. It's definitely not there in Order Ampliantis. It's Order Ampliantis is a cosplay group, often done in shabby and badly put together community centers at the edge of town, and I'm saying this because there's no love for aesthetics at all, not because there's anything wrong with being edge of town. I mean, I live edge of town. I live in zone 3 in London, so it's not about that. It's about like not caring about it, not caring about at all, right? And on top of that, the people that were supposed to carry this ongoing lineage from the connection to the divine through the egregore of the group, it's been emptied. It's a spring that died, which is, again, it's very interesting because the idea of the well and the spring is such an important imagery that you find, especially in the early degrees of the OTO, all gone. I cannot speak for the Golden Dawn. As I said many times, I never joined the Golden Dawn, but I've seen this happen in other groups that I had the opportunity to survey directly. Okay, so it's that's the reality of it. That's the reality of, and I guess this is the most important thing to really put the focus on, is that most of these groups, most of these orders that you can join have no connection whatsoever with any egregore. I mean, I'm going very slow here, right? So you can actually take it all in. This connection with the egregore, which is so important because this is where magical orders, magical groups, covens, everything, get their spiritual authority from. Most of this group have nothing to offer on this part. I would go on to say, and I said this before, any magical group you can join without being invited into it, and I would argue also every magical group you can find on the internet, it's not a real magical order anymore. Maybe it has been at some point, but it's not anymore. There exist covens, spiritual groups, maybe even maybe magical orders do exist, but they do not present themselves on the internet for you to join by sending a letter or an email. I run, or at least I'm still running, I don't know for how long, a Thelemic Gnostic Church, Ecclesia Gnostica Universalis. It's not an initiatory church in the sense that we do not grant initiation, but we have a series of rituals that people can go through in order to latch onto the egregore of the Thelemic Gnostic Church. Okay, now I'm telling you this not because I'm trying to sell it, because what happens here is that I received hundreds of emails since 2018 when Ecclesia Gnostica Universalis was reactivated by me. I didn't found it, I reactivated it. I received hundreds of emails of people telling me, I want to join, I want in, this is it. Some very, very detailed emails. Every single time I told these people, okay, I need to know you personally. I need you to know the rest of the group personally. It's not a big group, but it's a group. And we need to become familiar with each other. And we need to spend at least 1 year at a day, which is a bit of a thing that I got from Wicca. But I think it's like 1 year at a day gives the idea of a period of time. But we get to know each other, and I can then ascertain if you're good for the group, and the group can ascertain if you're good for the group, and you can ascertain if we're good for you. Hundreds of emails, almost 6 years, 0 people ever decided to go through these steps. 0. And I'm telling you this because, once again, we live in times where everybody has been convinced that in order to join a magical group, receive magical instruction, and a connection with the aggregor, all you have to do is to send an email online. It's bullshit. It's not true. That's not how it works. And if everything you've joined by doing these steps, it means that very likely you've joined a group that it's only a cosplay, a reconstruction group. Okay. Now, this is the first part I wanted to address. It's not all that I want to say, right? First of all, I want to just see. There's a lot of questions that I've been starring. I'll get to them at the end of the next part. We're getting there. Somebody on Instagram say that they agree in regards to Freemasonry, and we'll discuss that shortly as well. William is saying is that I always complain about the orders, not the OTO, being London-centric, but I realize that Thelema is self-centric. That's very true. That's fantastic, right? You do the work and you see the results or not. Absolutely, William, 100%. Community is great, and I would love to see the Mass. I agree as well, because the Gnostic Mass, Liber 15, is, well, when it's well done in the right environment, it's for me, it's the best group ritual I've ever been part of. I say this, well done in the correct environment, because I also done it by, in official OTO settings, especially in Glastonbury, where it was done in terrible places with no love being put into creating a magical and spiritual and divine setting by people that couldn't care less. And that's the truth. That was my truth in the OTO. Like, there was a lot of, and from what I've heard, is pretty much the standard fare. That's what you get. It's most of the time it's badly done by people who can care less. And of course, every time I make the statements, there's always people who come to me and say, "Oh, but what are you talking about? Like, my lodge does it well." It's always like, it's always the exception, right? Well, I visited dozens of OTO groups, and very few ever put any care into doing it. Maybe I'm just unlucky, right? Okay, so where are we going next from this, right? Well, I think that there is no need for orders themselves. What you need is a true teacher or tutor. I did use the term teacher here, even if you will know that I don't particularly like the term teacher or master or guru, because they're very, very heavy as as terms, and a lot of people have issues with that, correctly, I think. But the truth is that, if you cannot get any sort of proper instruction from orders anymore, if you cannot go to school anymore, right, because there is no connection with the aggregor, as I said, in most of the cases, what are you going to do? Well, you need to find a tutor. You need to find somebody who can teach you magic. Do it yourself, and then you go. I mean, we've seen what happens when people do things themselves. The last 5 years of witch talk and Reddit and 4chan happens. It's for me, it's really hard to look back at the last few years, because for a while I really thought that the enthusiasm that the lockdowns created, because we were all trying to survive, and we all were trying to actually channel that into something positive, would stay and would produce good fruits, but it didn't really. Very few people have got anything actually positive out of that experience. Uh, Countless people who joined, joined orders as well, just to say, or signed up for course after course after course, and they got absolutely nothing out of it. Part of this is, I think, it is. It's also the fault of the teachers. I was one of them, so it's definitely part of my fault as well. But the reality there is that there was a lot of I take this course, I do 1% of it, and then I go and teach, or then I go and start my YouTube channel. There was one person, not going to name names, but some of you will know what I'm referring to. Was this person, young woman in the United States, not the famous one, another one, appeared out of nothing. It was on every Discord, literally trying to, let's say, get inspired, and she wrote not one but two books out of this, and now she's disappeared, completely gone. You can't find her. The books haven't sold anything. They're just like horrible stuff. It's crazy that they were published, as well. So, but the point is that, right, like, finding a true teacher, finding a true guru, finding a true master, all terms I use, it's hard, but that's what you got to do. If you're interested in these things, don't think you can do it yourself. You will burn, and you will make mistakes. So if you're interested in spiritual evolution, if you're interested in spirituality and not in religion or community or belonging somewhere, if you're interested in your spiritual evolution, you must find a tutor, right? And possibly you will need to go and trial and error. Maybe don't you also need to accept that you won't be maybe lucky the first time. Maybe, sadly, I hate to say, maybe your first experiences won't be great, because there's a lot of horrible people out there. But you know what? Initiation is hard, and it's hard fought and hard won, right? So uh, you have to try again and again and again. Now, now that I made this point, I mean, this is a point I made many times, right? I just like to reiterate things. So now we go back to the beginning, right? We go back to where we will start. Like this person, super committed Telemite, that out of sudden, what they wanted was a temple to just go and do masses, right? So basically, much like let me see if I can actually show you what I did here. Like I replied to them. Oh no, we can't do that. I replied to them saying, well, something like, well, all you want to do is you want a church, right? You don't want magic. You don't want initiation. You don't want evolution. You want a change. You just want a church. And he was saying things like, oh well, like my closest body is 300 miles away. Now I have a small baby. I just cannot do this thing, right? I was very busy. I just want things, on my doorstep. And so I was like, well, like Christianity got there more or less in 1000 years. I feel like you're too early. And this person's like, oh, I never thought about that. The funny bit is that yet another person then replied to say, well, you want Mormons. That's what we do. Interesting enough, this person used to be on my Patreon for a while. Very earnest individual. I think this person is an earnest seeker. The Mormon is an earnest seeker. But this person at some point realized that magic is not for them. Magic is too hard. Magic is complex. Magic requires a lot of or investment, emotional investment, psychological investment, from time to time financial investment, because you need things to do, maybe books to buy, or you need to travel to meet people and teachers. And what they needed was a community, and the funny bit is that they went back to their original community. They were Mormons before, and now they're Mormons again. And from what it seems, they're happy with it. And the funny bit is that they also mentioned that the the Mormons kind of are like a magical church. And I'll tell you something. In the ultra-reactionary and far-right wings of Thelema, a lot of people are making the point that we should actually re-envision Mormonism as an expression of Thelema. I cannot even begin to tell you how fucking insane that is. But Peter Levenda actually wrote a book on this that proves very convincingly that Mormonism is a magical religion, but it's a religion. Okay. Now, what is this difference? What is this difference between spirituality and religion? Is there a difference between the two? I think that Christopher Wallace, in his book Near Enemies of the Truth, which just came out, you should get this book. It's required reading or listening. The audiobook is also there. He put it beautifully. And I'm going to read it. And it says that on this journey, it is crucial to distinguish between religion and spirituality. We can say that the former, religion, consists of comforting beliefs, and thus, if we're honest, much of what we call today spirituality is actually religion. And the latter consists in the willingness to strip away beliefs and to see what's really true. This is it. Okay, you have to go back to this, to this quote, and imprint it in your mind in 5 letters till you can actually quote it with your eyes closed. This is it. A lot of you who want magic, you want religion. There's nothing bad with it. We've been forced to believe that religion is bad because, especially here in the West, we've been dealing with 2000 years of oppressive Christianity. Religion is not bad. Religion comes from the Latin religo. I bind myself again. And it means that you bind yourself. You renew your bindings to the divine. You renew your willingness to be connected with the divine. But in many ways, religion offers these comforting beliefs and offers community, offers a place where you can actually go and engage in your comforting beliefs and have a glimpse of the divinity by virtue of community service and of engaging with a community of like-minded people. That's not magic. That's not spirituality. Spirituality really implies a willingness to destroy your beliefs. Alchemically, you want to put yourself into the athanor, into the furnace, and melt away in the nigredo phase till nothing remains but your true core. And that true core then can be made into gold. But at the time when you enter the furnace, you're lead. You're like inferior metal. And you want to strip all of that away. That requires incredible determination. And this is what magic is about. This is what Thelema is about. While Thelema has a religious aspect, and I think it has a religious aspect because Crowley wanted to um, hit all the possible avenues of promulgation. Thelema is much more is a religion only for those who need it to be a religion. And unfortunately, again, the problem is that most of people who gets into this these practices, all they want is instead comforting beliefs and be part of a group. And most of all, do not strip away those beliefs because they need to be reassured that what they already know is the truth. That is not what magic is meant to do. Okay. Somebody's saying 93 from Consu Camp, Las Vegas. I hate the OTO, as you all know, but welcome. We welcome everybody here. I'm sorry. Please get out of the OTO. You're wasting your time. So, what do we get? Where are we going next with this? Right? Okay. Now that we made this point, where are we going next? So, I feel like this again another how do you say tweet on that series of the thread that inspired me to make this live stream. This is from MOG Morgan of Mandrake of Oxford, well-known publisher here in the UK. MOG has been a Thelemite for much longer than me. Again, not an OTO Thelemite. Again, me and MOG, we don't see eye to eye almost anything. MOG is one of those who really believe that Thelema is Egyptian magic. And at the same time, I think he has a lot to say and interesting things to say from time to time. For instance, he made the point here that, at the end of the day, all of this is basically hitting basic spiritual needs like fellowship and identity, like Freemasonry, which perhaps does that too. Now, I think this is a good remark because as a Freemason myself, I always know very well that my Freemasonry is a study of an old Ionic system. An old Ionic system that really tried to merge together the aspiration towards spiritual evolution with the tending to the community. In fact, tending to the community is a fundamental part in Freemasonry. The idea of charity work or relief is one of the pillars of Freemasonry. But the point is that Freemasonry doesn't truly offer you the kind of spiritual initiation, the kind of alchemical transmutation that Thelema does, for the very simple reason that Freemasonry is a speculative system. Freemason maybe thinks about truth, and maybe Freemasons, engage with rituals that veil the truth to allegory and symbols. But you don't get to experience the truth, okay? You do not get to truly change alchemically through the degrees of Freemasonry. I engage with Freemasonry because of its beauty, and I engage with Freemasonry because I still strongly believe that Freemasonry it is one of those blueprint of the Western esoteric tradition. In many ways, if you have the chance of doing Freemasonry, you should try to do it because it really gives you. It makes you understand how other ideas come together. This is especially true if you, for any reason, you're still wasting your time in Ordo Templarientis. If you're not a Freemason, you'll never understand the entirety of Ordo Templarientis, especially in the Man of Earth degrees, but even more so in the Lover's Triad, because the Man of Earth degrees, it was pretty much Crowley telemizing and subverting the messages of the 3 degrees, well, the degrees of the early degrees of Freemasonry, the 3 degrees of the Craft of Blue Lodge, and then the degrees of the Holy Royal Arch. And then, 5th, 6th, and 7th degree pretty much are the same as, 18th, 30th, and 33rd, sorry, of the Scottish Rite, just with a little bit of changes here and there. But it's the same thing, right? So if you're still wasting your time in OTO and you're not a Freemason and you can become a Freemason, but maybe you should do that. So you understand it much, much more. Somebody is saying here, sadly, Masons do not accept females. Women, maybe it's a better term than female. Anyway, point is that's not true. At least here in the UK, there are 2 orders of women Freemasons who would go through all the same rituals as we do. Now, I don't quote me because I might be wrong, but I have the feeling that in a few years, and maybe that will be 10 years from now, maybe a little more, but relatively few compared to how long Freemasonry has existed, I think that we will get to the point where maybe not mixed lodges, right, will be accepted, but in the sense that maybe there will always be lodges. When you enter a lodge, you will only be with only men or only women. But I think that eventually there will be a formal recognition of of women Freemasonry. Okay, so many ways, like the women can be Freemasons, right? And I would say it's a great experience if you feel if you feel curious about it. Okay, now I see a lot of okay, there's something else there. I just want to wrap this up. I want to wrap this up with our a little quote from our friend Aleister Crowley, right? I'll put it there so you can actually see it all. This is from is that chapter? What's that chapter? It's chapter 61, Power and Authority from Magic Without Tears. It's a long chapter. Maybe you want to go and read it all, but you can see what Crowley thought about orders and communities at the end of his life. There is only one reason why the older I grew. Sorry, let me drink this and then I'll come back. So let's do it again. This is one of the reasons why the older I grow and the more experience I have of human nature, the more I am convinced that the wisdom of the chiefs of the AA, which is the aggregor we were talking about before, where association with any person except your immediate superiors or the ones whom you are yourself in charge is discouraged in every possible way. In the AA, ideally, you would be only in contact with your direct superior. And of course, Crowley continues. There are, of course, exceptions. It is necessary, through regrettably so, for personal instruction in the practices to be given or received. For all that, I wish I could show you 200 or 300 letters that I received in the last 20 years or so. They tell me without the shadow of a doubt that anything like fraternization leads only to mischief. This is Crowley telling you that magical orders are pointless, okay, because they only will lead you, as he says, to mischief. So again, I definitely suggest you to go and read all of chapter 61. This was only an excerpt, but you will see that there's more to it. And again, if you don't want to believe me, and if you are a Telemite and you're the kind of Telemite that want to always go back to Crowley, then there you go. You got your Crowley right there. All right, now I hope I made the point for tonight. Before leaving you all, I have some questions to answer, and I will get to them right now. So the first one is: are there any good resources for beginners on Memphis Mizraim, thinking about joining or wanting to study it first? My friend, Memphis Mizraim is an incredibly complex topic because everything that's irregular or clandestine Freemasonry, pretty much everybody makes it up as it goes, right? I would really suggest you. There was one book by Milko Bogard. Uh, it's called, I don't remember it. I have it downstairs, unfortunately, not here with me. But let me see if I can actually find it very fast for you. Milko Bogard. One book by him a few years ago that was good to give you an idea. I cannot find it. Maybe contact me and then I will send you the link. In general, this guy wrote has been writing books over books over books on everything that's clandestine Masonic related, and he did some good ones on Memphis Mizraim. There's one book by De Blasi called Esoteric Freemasonry. It was edited by Llewellyn, if I'm not mistaken. You can find that on Amazon. That it's a good idea of give you an idea of what it is. The problem is that you're thinking about joining. What are you going to join? Like which one? Memphis Mizraim again. It's so since there's no regularity about it and everybody makes it as it goes along. Like you could join a horrible group of people with no real aggregor behind them. Honestly, I really hope that people in time will understand that maybe this idea of joining a group, it's it's a delusion we need to get off. We get it over with, right? Because Good luck. Let's put it. I'm gonna just think gonna be like good luck. There was another question here. Orders to me seem more as a way to peer review, verify your finding and nosing. I learned the fundamental information to learn and perfect technique. Well, that's true if you find people that can peer review or verify finding your noses. When I joined the OTO, I knew more about magic than pretty much everybody else in the room. Then in time, I get to know a couple of people who were, at my level of understanding, and then there were none. And that's gonna be the case for most groups you join, right? So you don't want to join an order. You want to find a good teacher. You're going to find a good tutor. You want to find a person knows their stuff and can guide them, can guide you. Don't join orders because orders are about a structure, about everything that I say tonight. Okay, don't join orders. Find your teacher. Okay. So I had some more here. Okay. How do you know which practice to choose? I've been haunted by coincidences for years. Last year, my coincidence became Nordic, big through miracles. So I've been wearing between you and Norse practices. Um, I would really say follow your synchronicities or coincidences, right? It doesn't matter what you like or what you think you like. What matters is how what I would call the holy guardian angel guides you towards. That's also why you have to be very honest with yourself and say, hey, are these, miracles true, or I'm just looking into them? Are these or and another thing is like, maybe are these miracle true because they're the easier way, and I don't want, Marco is always like, badgering me about. By the way, I don't know who you are. Sorry, I don't recognize the name. So if we, if we know each other, feel free to get in touch. But I don't recognize the name, right? So, but what I do badger about is that the fact that if you want to get some magical expertise, you have to practice. You have to do it, right? And it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days and weeks of thankless practice. You got to do it. And then I can understand that a lot of people may don't want that, right? A lot of people want something simple. A lot of people, as the guy from our Twitter thread before, they just want to go to church. They want to sit down in church, listen to somebody telling them a funny story, maybe watching something beautiful, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe cook a potluck dinner, and that's about it. I will tell you that no, you need to practice. Maybe ideally, if you want to do it like probably 6 hours a day. Then again, who's got the time to do that, right? But that's what you got to do. So if the problem here is because on one side you have somebody like me who tells you got to practice and it's hard and it's going to take you years, and the other say you see a lot of coincidences and they just tell you to just go along with the flow, maybe you already have your answer. But if those coincidences are true miracles, you got to go there, right? Yeah, that's how the holy guardian angel speaks to you before you can actually have a conversation with them. I also noticed though that, I don't know, since the concept of synchronicity became popular in recent years, everybody has constant synchronicities. And then again, I mean, you all know, if you don't, I'm going to repeat it. You all know how much I love Hellier and the ghost hunting, which is much more like a magical show that came out a few years ago, 5 years ago now. Think about it, how time flies. And I mean, definitely Hellier is responsible for making the concept of synchronicity, magical synchronicity, popular once again. I gotta be honest with you. Apart from the team and very few other people, a lot of those who were seeing synchronicities everywhere, they disappeared into nothingness. They haven't done anything with it. So again, maybe you want to consider if you're looking for an easy way out where you don't have to practice, or you are actually having immense synchronicities. And if you do, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go that way. There's no other way. You cannot avoid that. Okay. Alrighty, how's everybody doing? I hope this was good. I definitely enjoyed it. Once again, if you are curious about what I do, if you're curious about the Holy Guardian Angel, I have a course for that. If you're curious about learning magic, I have a course for that too. And if you're curious about the Thought Tarot, well, imagine that I have a course for that too. Once again, you can find everything on magic.marcovisconti.org. And thank you for being here. I'll see you at some point. I don't know exactly when. Uh, if you have questions, if you want to see more of these live streams, and you have specific questions, send them my way, because I like to create things like this as a bit more structured than just me answering magic questions. Um, that's it for now. Thank you again. Do what the will shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love on the will.